16 years pass, and now I am 33 years of age. I'm voted as the king of my new tribe in the north. Cuba gave me 20 babies. She had 21 nonetheless, being her first one from Ken. He was a big boy, Cuba's first son. He grew as big as Ken. His name was Uri. At first, Uri was a handful. Very strong he was. Soon enough, he would begin to adapt to our lifestyle and became a loyal warrior. We have been in war for the past 16 years against the peoples of Ken, which I found out Ken is commanded by the Assyrian army, against the peoples of the land of Magog, and the new mystery king that arose and took over Ken's village in Balkai. I was told that warriors of Magog and those of the Assyrians challenged the mystery king every day for 3 weeks, and none could dethrone him. Apart from the many battles we had against them, our spies informed me that acts of sabotage against my people were now being done by this new mystery king that I haven't identified yet. Ken's camp was called Balkai by Ken's men. My spies also informed me that a new nation formed by the mountains, a point west where our tribes reached. They told me it was lifted by a ruthless queen. Our society called it Altai. These two mystery kings acquired many horses and rode them like none before, matching those of Ken's men. However, whoever it is, the people of Magog, the Assyrian warriors, the mystery king of Balkai, and the new queen of Altai, or whatever threat came our way, I wasn't going to lose one more loved one. Many of the battles that took place arose when Ken and I fought over the hunting grounds. The union of Magog and Ken's people decimated much of the megafauna. And now, not only would we have to worry about a food shortage, but in pursuit of our bestest nutrition would also mean a possible encounter with my enemy. Our spies saw the last megafauna roaming around the kingdom of Balkai. The only healthy population of megafauna was reduced to my land in the northeast that was now called Siberia by the union of my enemy, and Hibaro between ourselves. The biggest reason we could never get infiltrated was because there were not any better archers in the world than that of my own. My region was the coldest, where we managed to base ourselves in a series of caves that little were known of them because they couldn't go past my unbreakable soldier perimeter, the fiercest and most disciplined archers to ever walk in our land. I searched for my tribe's history. I was still missing the beginning. Other things kept me distracted. These recent battles the last decade were obviously because now they were beginning to get too close to our hunting grounds. The megafauna by Balkai were mobilizing little by little northeast into somewhere. Some saw them traveling past the glaciers up naturally carved pathways. Considering most of this was not easily traversable, the medic hands me some of Petros Ephrael belongings he wanted me to have. She also told me that he kept saying we should leave to a place far away from the land of Hibero, and nowhere west. We have to move eastwards. He said if we move west or stay, we die. Until the time they come for us again in 3 millennia. This sure startled me. But the old man was right. The enemy kept multiplying, and now they've invaded our sacred hunting grounds. In time, they may breach our defenses. Their numbers were becoming overwhelming, versus us at just over 1,000. We were a balanced people that knew when to hunt and how to store food with the aid of the freezing temperatures. My main desire was to attack my enemies, especially for the unbalance in nature they have created. But like I said, they united into the strongest army in the world, and it was time I was wiser. There was a small window of flexibility now, where I was able to see others flee from our region without persecution. But some didn't go that far, and were able to create small communities. This happened during the same time that the Mystery King admitted the sabotage of Siberia. Some were reduced to stay in coasts and waterholes where they may be able to fish. Some say even some groups of my tribe went all the way south and found how to live off Mother Earth and not hunting like us. This is how some of us divided into the land. This happened together with our migrations of US's people that we call the Shin. Jesus' cousin, another tall son of Ken named Shandong, moved many miles south of us, And Jesus' young brother Liao moved even more south of that with peoples from the family of Ophir related to my tribes. One of my younger brothers, Buriat, met a tribe of people south of Balkai and mixed with the family of Hazar Mabeth, and then with those of Hobab. Their best warrior was a horseman named Hasara. He raised two other animals from birth apart from his horses, his dog Bankar and a baby golden eagle. He held these three animals with his life, and they did the same for him. Nobody could ever get close to Hasara. An older step-cousin of ours, descendant of Ken named Yenisei, went to a river mouth up here to the west and had a family with a half Shin, half Hibaro. We're still connected to them through my spies, and he was too raised as a great warrior amongst Ken's old camp. Over there, he is who is in charge. Between Balkai and us, I had a camp of warriors from the start. I placed Nanai as their leader who would respond to my every order. Their loyalty is to be an extension of us. And last, the land of Magog to the west, that was rising and consuming all others together with the Assyrians to the near southwest. As we finish a fishing expedition trying to steer clear of our own hunting grounds, we head back to our camp. We found our warrior Sai was missing. Our sources assured he was taken by Ken's men. Whatever happened, they were going to pay. The message left by them was that the Mystery King wanted to meet me and fight me. Oh, but that he will. That night I rested good. I leave at dawn with my horse and change it and refuel at Nanai's camp, a very strategic location and hard to overthrow from geographical advantages. When I get there, I enter what used to be Ken's camp at Balkai. I'm greeted by Sai himself, making me so confused as he tells me everything is okay. I thought he could have been dead, or possibly being tortured. Sai told me he didn't want to leave Balkai, that he was having such a great time, and wants me to meet the king. From shadows casted on curtains, I can see three enormous men walking towards me. As they reach the entrance, I can see them clearly. The one on the left resembled a very, very tall Shin. He's the one we saw leading the horsemen who sabotaged us recently. The one on the right was a very tall boy that looked a bit like my brother, but he definitely resembled the Shin as well. The one in the center, the tallest of them all, was my brother, Toro. We greet, and he says,
"Brother, don't you recognize me even when I'm sabotaging your lands? It was me, your younger brother, Toro. Don't you worry, I'm not going to fight you. Father and I realized your abilities that day you took Cuba. Even as powerful as I am right now, having defeating hundreds of the best and becoming the king of Balkai, I cannot defeat you as you are, the king of the Siberians. You truly are the best warrior. But that is not why I brought you here."
I ask him, why? Why did you kidnap Sai to bring me here? Toro says,
"I freed your people. The ones that agreed are all here in Balkai."
I couldn't believe it. It was too good to be true. Sai responds saying, yes, it's true, my king. Toro cuts our celebration short saying,
"But you must leave. You cannot stay. You will still be persecuted after your freedom. The peoples of Magog have decided to attack you, and then you. This is the most I could do for you."
I ask, wait, where's Yue? I want to let her know I am not angry at her. The man left to Toro responds to me,
"Why would you be angry at my mother?"
I open my eyes in disbelief. The child of Yue. I told him how she confessed how she failed us, but I was never angry. And I thought maybe that's why she stopped meeting with my spies a long time ago. He tells me,
"Mother never really failed you. Mother assassinated over 3,000 of Kansas warriors, took their horse, and became the ruthless queen of Altai."
He was the mystery queen of Altai, and Toro, the mystery king of Balkai. I asked my brother Toro, why did you sabotage my people? He says,
"That's the story your spies got from Kansas warriors. But I sabotaged the supply roads because the merchants were replaced by invaders that tried to take over Siberia. Shandong and our brother Buryat with the Hazar Maveth and Hobab.
I get it now. We were being saved by Toro, rather than being sabotaged. Toro says,
Before you leave, as a favor, take Yang, Yue's son, to Shandong. And please take my son, Torouski, with you.
Torouski was just a young man, but he was almost as tall as Toro and Ken, only shorter by a head. We leave, and about 100,000 people of our tribes follow my warriors towards Danai. Some that come with us are of Ken's people. About a few dozen had yellow hair like the sun, although Ken himself wasn't this light in complexion as some of these young men. Ken's skin was dark. He had jet black long hair, but had blue eyes. Others born of peoples in between also come with us and are the majority. As we ride the horses leading the tribes, now I get it. The real threat was Ken. He was the one who was still hunting me down and bringing in other hostile nations. He was camping with his warriors a few miles from Nanai's camp. Remember when I said some of Ken's warriors used to hunt megafauna with their bare hands? Well, this is them. Toro told us that the reason why the hunting grounds were being emptied was because of Ken's best warriors that are also his close friends that make Ken look small. Og, Gog, and Kurg, apart from his troops, who decimated the megafauna of Balkai. We dropped Yang with the peoples of our comrade Shandong. This was a great opportunity to get supplies there and prepare to leave right away. Yang would eventually hold the tallest family of the people of Shandong's clan. When we traveled back from the people of Shandong in close to a month's time, we couldn't find Yi. I was told Yi lost his child. I look into the sky and roar. I couldn't believe something like this happened to my loyal friend, even with all the preparations made for such scenarios not to occur. At this point, I haven't had any sleep in a whole day. I asked what had happened. Apparently, the children went fishing without supervision, and Yi's son was taken while the others managed to barely escape. They were deterred by somebody at the end. Taking a child from my clan means the same as taking a child from me. This couldn't have been my brother Toro, no. Only Ken. Og, Gog, and Kurg came to my mind. I go by foot towards the site near fishing waterholes. I instantly see the footprints. They were large, and I had never seen Og, nor Gog, or Kurg, but these footprints also lead towards the bigger glaciers, where the megafauna was headed to. I was able to find some samples of hair, and upon smelling it, many red flags were risen. Whatever this was, it smelled worse than Ken and a skunk combined. Ken can deter anybody with his foul scent alone, so this is saying a lot. Before I was able to think another thought and run towards the footprints out of impulse, Kamchatka shouts at me that Ken is at our door again. We get there in 15 minutes and my archers are doing their best to nullify the threat. It was Ken, Og, Gog, and Kurg. It was true. They were all at least 2 heads above Ken. But something was odd, and I had a strange gut feeling. I ordered them all to stop attacking Ken, but my soldiers remained uneasy. Ken and his men enter our camp, and the breeze hits them from west to northeast where I was. I could tell then and there it was not them. The scent was too different. I literally mean worlds apart. And Og, Gog, nor Kurg possessed red hair. In fact, their hair was rather curly, in contrast to whatever this silky straight red-haired stink devil was. But when they walk in front of me, I can tell by his posture he wanted to attack. My mental state at the time didn't let me see how my anger was blinding me, and I was placing everybody's lives in danger. But Ken's men seemed quite relaxed. I let things unfold, however. Ken strikes me with his dagger, just like that time in the past. Only that this time I grab his arm mid-strike. He gets angry and tries to free his arm from my grip, but he cannot. I don't let him move from that position for a good 10 minutes while I stare onto his soul. I ask him upon disrespecting my soil, "Do you not fear death?" Then I understood why were Kansas men so relaxed. They were overconfident as their muscles twitched to move to help Ken. Torowski, Uri, and Khan, my tallest men, and Kamchatka, Kai, and Tai, apprehend them. Gog looks at Ken telling him,
This mission was suicidal, Ken. They have men as big as you and even better than you.
Ken sees Kuba peek from a tent, and he calls her.
Kuba!
She hides again, making him angry. He gains further courage to lift his other hand at me. Uri dashes and strikes Ken in the throat with his elbow. Ken falls down to his knees coughing, and does something I had never seen him do before. He cries at Uri, telling him,
My son! I recognize you, my son!
To which Uri stands firm and says,
No.
Closing his eyes. Ken tells him,
My son!
and Uri repeats, screaming at Ken.
I said no!
I intervene and tell Ken, Uri is not your son. He's my son. Yi can be heard galloping towards us, screaming for Ken. His group ties Ken's hands, to which Yi runs towards Ken to attack him. Before he could reach Ken, I told Yi that it wasn't Ken. But Yi still runs and strikes Ken in the face, and continuously punches Ken in the face, while Ken just stares at Yi, taking the beating with the eyes of sadness. Ken broke down at that moment. Ken gave up anything that was holding him together to that point. Yi keeps beating Ken. I hold Yi and tell him, Yi, it wasn't him. I knew he knew it wasn't Ken. A man like Yi could tell by the scent alone. If not, Ken would have been dead from the first blow. Yi stops punching until Ken is unconscious. Ken's blood was everywhere. Yi looks at his bloody hands and begins to shake and cry to the sky, falling to the ground, saying, No, 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 no. I hold him as he breaks down, while I set my eyes onto the direction of the glaciers. Upon looking into the distance past Kamchatka's camp, a land of more ice and seemingly non-traversable glaciers, there had to be a reason for the migrating megafauna, and I was going to find out the hard way. I was ready to face this new threat head on. That being said, it took me a while to get Yi back on his feet. His emotions could pose a threat to the entire operation, but we could not blame poor Yi. We were at the brink too. Seeing our comrade Yi break down like that broke our hearts. My men and my whole nation witnessed Yi beating down Ken in total silence. Before our mission to retrieve Yuan, I decide I'm going to kill Ken. My men have Ken, Gog, Og, and Kirk tied up, and are ready to slice their throats at the snap of my fingers. Yi and I go to the kidnapping scene east to the edge of Kamchatka's camp to investigate further and talk about the futures of my peoples who were still harbored in Nanai's camp. The temperatures were dropping even more for some reason. It didn't seem natural, but I still couldn't understand the cause for this world of ice. When we reached the scene of the crime, Yi shows me why he beat down Ken. He then unveils an arrowhead that corresponded with the red hair I found. The arrow is what pinned his hair onto a pine tree before the fishing water holes, and it had Ken's scent all over it. I analyze in just a few seconds, and I tell him, Ken managed to reach this point of my nation's lands, but he did not lay a foot around the scene of the crime. It all points to Ken being the reason this newly found foe was deterred. Whatever it was, Ken had shot it with a powerful arrow blow from maybe 45 leagues away. My men interrogated a demoralized Ken. Apparently, Ken's nation was absorbed by Toro, whose power and influence was massive. He did this secretly, but incredibly fast. Toro exiled Ken from the nation of Ken, from parts of Altai to Balkai, along with a small portion of his men. This explains why Ken was constantly tormenting the megafauna of Iberia, along with the newly arrived peoples of Magog. When we arrive to kill Ken before embarking on this mission, I see one of my warriors losing control, and approaches Ken, threatening to kill him, pointing an arrow to his head. I am Jugatan, descendant of Joktan, and I shall be the one to end you, Ken. Right here, right now, once and for all of your crimes against our peoples. I shout at Jugatan, saying to him, "Get back into position, soldier. I am the king, and I should be the one to do it." I place Ken in a chokehold. The same chokehold I saw Yue using that almost killed Ken. As I slowly take away his life, I remember the times he could have killed me, but spared me by exiling me. And now, upon knowing how my brother Toro exiled Ken, gave me hints on what to do. A few seconds before Ken's heart stops beating, I let go of his neck and I stopped choking him. Even after he killed my mother, I had a hunch it wasn't up to us to end his life anymore. Ken is already defeated. As I do this, my whole nation demand that we end with his life. Yet I don't give in, ordering my people to give me silence, sentencing Ken and his men to freedom and exile. But first, we release them by throwing them off the highest cliff while still tied up in ball position. Before I kick their bodies to the cliff, Ken says,
They are coming. The ones who sent me here. The peoples that are rising from the land of Magog. But primarily my king. The king to the Assyrians. The old man Petros who spread your people's story among Siberia couldn't give you the whole story. However, I can fill the blanks that you are missing. And there's a threat waiting for you in the Far East.
And without a chance for another word, I kick Ken and his men down the cliff. We witness as their tied heavy bodies aggressively crash and break the branches off trees. About an hour later, my spies saw them walking up and leaving. Gog tells Ken,
What is wrong with you, Ken? Why have you become so weak? A warrior like me prefers death, rather than being shamefully spared and then utterly humiliated and thrown into a ravine with my arms and legs and head tied behind my back by your own puny slaves and your own offspring. My army and I will make sure to give the Siberians their permanent end.
Gog, Og, and Kurg leave Ken. Kurg says,
We've noticed how embarrassingly defeated you've become. Our freedom is pitiful. This was worse than being exiled by your own son.
Ken gets crazier within his mind all alone in the wilderness, repeating,
I will hunt you down, Akko. I will be there and change your life forever. That chokehold. It was the same as the chokehold Yue did to me that one time. It was her. She trained Akko. That's how he's so powerful. Now I see.
Ken enters in turmoil. My spies affirm they later saw him possibly drowning in hatred. It was at this time that my men spot a golden eagle. This was no ordinary eagle. This was my brother's golden eagle. My brother Buriat would use this eagle to trade with us. We supplied his clan, the Hasara, with our megafauna products. Our trade route went all the way from the Hasara to Yenisei and his clan the Sami, to Yang in Shen Dong's clan, to the people of Digla further down from Kamchatka's camp. But this message says, "Run. Magog and Assyria is moving toward you." The message had Nanai's mark, so I knew Nanai is mobilizing my people. But I sent horsemen just to make sure the tribes are confirmed moving toward Kamchatka's camp. And I touched the ground, and again, a small earthquake can be felt. They are coming, and they are many. Sai had offered to lead the horsemen, which was weird to me, but not enough to not let him go. After all, Sai has always protected us, but I do see something in his eyes. As hundreds of thousands of people arrive at Kamchatka's camp about a week later, I am informed Sai went back to Balkai for some reason. My warriors look at me, but I have no idea. I think personally Sai met a girl of my tribe, of the ones that stayed in Balkai by Ken's land, now ruled by my brother, Toro. However, I command the people to begin walking toward the east, beyond Kamchatka. We see the Assyrians and the peoples of Magog at about 5,000 leagues away from my spies that climbed the glaciers to see. They were coming fast. About a quarter of my people were elderly, and I don't know how we were going to make it. As I am about to stay and face them in battle, I tell the elderly, the women and the children to leave and escape, finishing our journey, even if it meant my men and I were to die. However, all the elders gather in a circle, and they tell me they will be the ones who will stay. I fight against this absurd idea, but my warriors convince me that the elderly will eventually know what's best. Looking back at the elderly with tears in my eyes, while they had no emotions, they were totally sure about their decision, and I will never forget them. And how they saved us by buying time for the next generation to come. I kept roaring until I felt the Assyrian horsemen finally reach the location where the elderly stayed. The plan had worked. The Assyrians stopped. We were able to escape, but just barely. My tears fell down, but we can only keep on moving. My spies see Ken crazier than ever, apparently also hunting me down. Did I do wrong by sparing Ken? Did I get too cocky? Our horses were faster than him, but I could tell our horses were at their definite limit. Before we're forced to walk upwards to a slippery hill, I see Yi and his family holding each other and looking away from a sight. It's a camp, recently used by someone. There seems to be a long arrow, filled with blood, and covered with red hair. However, Yi and his family are panicking and looking away because next to it, there's a small toy bow. This toy bow belonged to Yuan, our missing child, son of Yi. As we continue, we run into a few problems. A wide hill in front of us was slippery and very steep, but when we tried going around it, the horses didn't want to go near what our scent told us to be the shore, and we needed to think fast. We suddenly get hit by this scent of fresh meat, maybe a carcass down towards the shores. Something tells me and my group that walking up the hill seems like the best choice. The horses were choosing not to walk up the hill. I ordered the men and the women to carry about 2 children each, and those big and agile enough to walk, we let walk. We walk up, leaving the horse behind, but now my spies sense the Assyrians moving again, and Ken should be close by. We reach the top and manage to go around the mountain's edge. As we get somewhat closer to the scent of the carcass, we conclude it's obviously fresh megafauna meat. As we stealthily look throughout the mountain's edge, we see the first Assyrian warriors arriving, and they take the road through the coasts like we tried. However, as they near the coast, we see them get mauled by the biggest polar bear we have ever seen in our lives. No wonder our horses felt uneasy. Reading the horses saved our lives, at least just a bit further. We can see the Assyrians coming, and crazy old Ken. Some are pursued by bears, but most manage to cross through the openings around the coasts. All we needed is to cover a valley, and reach another hill easier and seemingly safer to cross. I reached the peak, but I looked back. The Assyrians are at the other peak across this valley. They have stopped. One walks from within warriors and gets in the front of thousands of horsemen. He and I stare at each other for about 10 minutes. He raises his weapon, causing his men to shout together, but he turns and walks away. His soldiers follow him, all doing the same. That was their king, the king of the Assyrians. However, I had no idea why they were leaving like that. We continue, and 1,000 leagues from that, we begin to descend from this particular glacier. To our surprise, we reach a point between these glaciers where we could actually see vegetation. We couldn't understand how between all this ice there was such a beautiful green oasis. We also saw the megafauna. It was a long time before we seen so many. We called it Rahuacan, the green center, but I couldn't stay any longer. I knew I had to head apart with a smaller group that will help me defeat Ken. I hide the people in 2 distinct locations and order them to wait there in Rahuacan. I take with me Uri, Torouski, Kenapwe, Lenape, Yi, Khan, Yucatan, and another of my own children named Ko. I act as bait, and Ken manages to take it. He follows us for about 2 months. After the Green Center, it was brutal glaciers all over again, all along the way, where we tracked whoever took you on. As we finally reach quiet forests, we acknowledge we are in unknown territory. We agree it's too quiet. This is too quiet, even for any forest. I was certain we were being watched, as the hairs in the back of my neck stand up, and I was sure this wasn't Ken. The next thing I knew, a boulder flies an inch past my head. My squad and I look at the sheer size of this boulder. Then we stare at each other in utter fear and doubt. After the boulder barely misses my head, I am instantly hit by something different. The scent we're looking for hits me. We put our guard up and organize in formation. It seems whatever we were looking for has incredible sensing capabilities. Whoever they are gave us an early welcoming party upon arriving to this new land. But then we finally saw him, the tallest person we've ever seen. If Ken and his men were freaks of nature to us, this definitely beats them by at least twice their height. I still don't know how somebody so enormous could be so nimble and fast. Whatever this person was, jumps toward us, smashing the ground, breaking our formation. We dodge him, but we were so shocked at this moment when he stands still, glaring at us, and it took us a few seconds to fight back. I shout, "Wake up and fight!" I look at him, and he has red hair, white skin. He has at least twice the height of Ken, and smelled 20 times worse than that of a skunk. We managed to shoot the monster with our last arrows, but he doesn't go down easily. He still moves around with those arrows stuck in his body. Yi runs with his dagger towards him, but Yi is way too small. Kenapwe, Khan, Torouski, and Uri pin the monster in place, but the monster grabs Uri. I run alarmed with my dagger, but before I could get there to climb and stab him in the neck, Ken jumps out of nowhere and separates Uri from the monster's grip. Ken holds on to the monster, looking at me. He expects me to give the finishing blow. Before I can climb on him and stab him in the neck with my dagger. I am knocked out by a smaller stone, and everything goes black. I wake up in a dark place. It seems to be inside of a cave, and I can't see much. Somebody enters, starting a fire, revealing him, and this domain. It's another of these monsters, and I'm tied to boulders with ropes. I wasn't too worried for my squad, only at the thought of these things in large numbers. When the red-haired devil moves away from the way of the light, I see that his arm is hairy, with the same long red hairs that I had retrieved from the crime scene. But this one had deep arrow wound along his forearm, and missing hair that corresponded with the evidence way too perfectly. Then I suddenly hear the voice of Yi. "It was you who took my son! Where is he? Where is my son?" That's when I noticed. No wonder I smelled my squad near. Yi is here with me too. But when I look around some more, Kenapwe and Ken are tied up with us as well. The monster heard Yi and comes over near us to tell Yi,
Master will be pleased with you too. My. You makes our job easier. We couldn't ask for more. My. A Chin, a Siberian, a Kennesite traitor.
He looks at Kenapwe and says,
And some watered down hybrid.
We hear a loud bang outside, so the monster steps outside to see what was going on. But he stays over there. But like I said, I wasn't worried. My men can kill a person with a stick, let alone a kaguara, daggers we created made out of megafauna bone. Upon getting closer to this place, we crafted very sharp kaguara from clams and seashells by a river. We eventually saw the monster nonchalantly enter and step out a couple of times. I ask out loud, why hasn't he eaten us yet? After 3 hours of silence, Ken begins to speak.
I think I can answer your question.
But Yi yells at him, You better not talk. I tell Yi, hey, no, let him speak. And Ken says,
They're called the King Nametsin. I know this because I have a great-grandfather just like them. In fact, you all have great-great-grandparents just like me. My ancestors were in Siam as much as the Chin. My paternal lineage is also of Joktan, even if I look different from you. We are the product of almost the same peoples with different outcomes.
Kenapwe asks,
Father, why do we grow so tall?
Just as Kenapwe, all of Ken's children are the tallest among Siberia and among other places, except for Buryat, my brother. He's almost as short as I am. Ken responds to Kenapwe.
Aspects to my physical appearance are also connected to my name. Akos's lineage and the Chin represent two lineages. One of the Levant and another an African lineage. These two would intermarry with the ancient Greek. That, apart from the beginning where it was only mostly among themselves. The lineage that gave all of us this extreme height is that of the Kenites, similar to these monsters, the Kinametsin, who are Canaanites, a lineage that is strongest in my people. When Joktanites and Edomites sought women from the lineage of Ashkenaz, and Israelites from that of the Kenizzites. There's people like me, from those who stem from Canaan. Also among the Philistines, the kingdoms of Cush and Kemet, and in the north to the far west. In some places, I'm the last of my kind. My genes for height are strong, Because of my many children, there's many tall people, such as Yang, Shandong, Uri, Toro, Yenisei, Kenapwe, Khan, and even all the way to my grandson, Torouski. Even my grandson, 2 generations apart. You saw him. In the last months crossing to this land, Torouski hit a growth spurt. It is almost as tall as me. We are called many things. Warriors, demigods, men of renown, the lineage of the dragon, the seed, and the lineage of monarchs.
I ask him, why have you done all of these bad things? Ken responds,
I used to serve Ashur, the kingdom of Assyria of Mesopotamia. King Salmanazar V acquired my ruthless services to destroy your tribes, and only a few of you were allowed to stay in the Levant. He is king no longer, however. The king that was following you through the glaciers is Sargon II. My loyalty was to Scythia and Assyria. My only desire was to steal, to kill, and to destroy. But I gave up on my own life, my own desires that day I lost your mother. When you threw me down the mountain, I truly wanted to challenge you one more time. I wanted to retrieve back the lion I once was, a roaming lion searching whom to devour. But Mayana is not what I needed anymore. On this way ever since I passed Kamchakas's camp, all I have been trying to do is find you, so I could apologize to you. You may not trust me, but I would imagine it's too late to call you son, and maybe I, your father. Just maybe. I'm truly sorry for everything that I have caused, and the lives I've removed from you. I am the man who took away your father. When they rebelled, I acknowledged 2 of the bravest men I have ever met. I easily took their lives, but when I see their hands after their lifeless bodies fall to the floor, one held a pink doll to his heart, and the other was holding a purple doll. These 2 men were best friends from 2 different tribes, brother tribes. I kept the dolls. One night, Kuba had seen my dolls. After that, she couldn't speak for a month. It was there and then that I began to wake up even more. The man with the pink doll was Kuba's father. And it was clear to me the warrior holding the purple doll was your father. But if you could only forgive me, I would also understand if you cannot. If I could, I'd hand you a weapon so you may stab me in my heart, so that maybe, just maybe, I could heal the wounds in yours, even if it were just a drop less. I tried taking my own life many times along the way here, but I kept failing.
I look at his many wounds, and it seemed to be true. I ask him, but why haven't they eaten us? Ken responds,
The reason they kidnap people is to sacrifice them to their master. After a series of rituals, then maybe they may eat their victims.
I tell him, you told me you can finish Petros' story. What did you mean by that? Ken replies,
It pertains to our lineages. It is said a worldwide flood was designed to eliminate the seed of Cain, the Canaanites, and the Canaanites like myself, all his seed after the world flood. You see, the seed of the dragon lives in me through Sayasudra's wife, Ama. But some of us have this lineage directly, not necessarily through Ama alone, different ways to its original source. After the flood, only the king Sayasudra and his wife Ama and his 3 sons Shem, Ham, and Japhet, along with their wives, managed to survive.
But he asks him a question. Why you interfere when our children were being kidnapped? Ken responds,
I have a sensitive nose. This is also how they found you so quickly. I have a great nose, but the Kinametsin can distinguish you by the scent signature of your blood. When my men and I reached north of Kamchatka, we noticed the scent of the Kinametsin. We saw them, about to take 3 of the children far into the fishing holes. But I don't know what got into me. I shot an arrow straight into his forearm, pinning his arm to a tree. He breaks the arrow and flees with the others, but they managed to take 1 of the children. I noticed too late, and that was my last arrow.
I say, I really don't know if I can forgive you. Ken says,
Would you kill me? And if not, would you take me as your servant or your prisoner? Take me out of my misery. I can't take it anymore.
I think about it, and I say, you risk your life to save us from these monsters. As my slave, you'll do. But still, I don't know if I can forgive you. So please continue and finish the story. But we're interrupted by a commotion outside of the cave. All we can hear is a loud banging outside. Kenabwe asks Ken,
Father, I don't know what will happen right now, but if we get out of here alive, please tell me the whole story so I can tell the story to my brother Lenape.
but an angry tall man can be seen entering the cave, and I am almost free from these ropes. But oh no, I may be too late.